The landscapes of our lives are for learning, where experience is our teacher. When we gather together to share our resources, we are destined to love and thrive. Good morning, Pierre.
Oh, good morning, Maureen. How are you?
We hit the start button, but we don't really know what we're talking about.
Oh, I do this morning, which is really, really good. And I'm so excited about talking about it.
Okay.
Can I start?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a resource pod, and the resource is Omid Safi, who's written a book, and the title of the book is Radical Love.
Cool. Okay. I thought it was The Cloud of Unknowing.
No, we'll talk about that too. The Cloud of Unknowing is a from a Christian, I believe, English Christian tradition at a monastery, written by, I love this. The Cloud of Unknowing is written by unknown. There's no author. It's anonymous. It's
Cool.
like one of the most famous books, if you get into sort of monk literature, and it's The Cloud of Unknowing by unknown. This is the most perfect thing.
So yeah, so we'll talk about that in a separate.
Yeah, we'll talk about
this
that.
is something different. So what's the guy's name? Omid Safi?
Omid Safi, yeah. He's contemporary, and the title is Radical Love, and then I should give you the subtitle because that's really teachings from the Islamic mystical tradition. And it's a book of poetry. And there are these Sufi mystics, and associated with them are, what we know as whirling dervishes, these sort of trance-like practices that are bringing people closer to God. And there's a little thing that goes on there.
That's a whirling dervish.
You never heard of whirling dervish?
I've heard it, but I don't know what it is.
They are dancers in an Islamic spiritual tradition that wear a robe, and they go around in a circle. And I just mentioned yoga and union. The one foot is planted in a single spot, and then the other foot goes around and around, and they spin, and their robes go out, and they just spin and spin and spin and spin in a trance.
They were in Riverdance. I wonder if they were in Riverdance. I'm just thinking of, no, because they have dancers from around the world and how different cultures express themselves, and how all the different dancers are expressing whatever dance.
Okay.
But in different cultures, like the Russian guys that go down on one leg and kick out, and then we had like the jazz tap dancers from New York City, and then you have the Irish step dancers, their arms tight and doing their thing, and then I think there was the flamenco dancer, and then maybe there might have been some whirling dervishes in there.
Yeah,
I can remember. Anyway.
Yeah, it's a Persian tradition coming out of Iran and coming out of the Sufi religion. I just wanted to shout out to my friend Manish, who gave me this book at a lovely little French restaurant, hole in the wall in a tiny, tiny town in New York. He took the day off. I mean, I just saw him the other day because he was out here with his wife and son, and they drove 2 hours to come to have lunch with me. I mean, what kind of friend, does this, brings his whole family? And they wanted to see Healdsburg as well, but really it was about sitting down, and it was just lovely. Anyway, he took the day off to bring me to a meditation garden and walk with me. And then we sat and broke bread together, and he provides me with amazing Well, inspiration, but also amazing books, and this was one that he gave me. It's got such a beautiful cover, even here in paperback. And I don't want to spend too much time on it, but
Why
um,
radical love? Why the title? Can you talk about that a little bit? Because this
yeah,
radical, this word radical has been used now in kind of like the wellness sort of area as like radical acceptance and radical truth. And so why radical love?
yeah,
I
that's
think
a
it's
great,
attention getting number one, but yeah.
yeah, that's a great question. It's not so much intention getting as it's sort of a spot on choice. The introduction subtitle is Islam's Path of Radical Love. So there's a mystical tradition in Islam, and it gets to the root of the Quran and the religion. And the radical piece, Maureen, is the world melts away, and your relationship with God is the only important thing. And that's where these mystics go super deep, and they strip everything away um, to find this love of God, and they have a very interesting view of God, where God loves us and made us, and in the Islamic mystical tradition, God uh, could not help this force rising up in him or her, and made the world and made us, and as it says in the Bible, thought it was good. Um, and and then if we can just see God, we will be complete, and just sort of be in that relationship. And a lot of what goes on in the secular world is distractions from the beauty that's around us, and seeing it all as God. God is everywhere and everything. And these are concepts that, float around in other religions and in spiritual practices, but these mystics
I think of even Native American culture, Native culture,
live it out.
indigenous stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a 15, I think it's 15. No, it's more than that. It's quite a few pages long introduction, and he introduces them. We know some of the poets that he introduces in this book, because it is a book of poetry. Rumi, who else is in here? Hafiz. If you read some of this literature, you'll know
Why do you
some of.
think poetry is the I guess genre that is apropos to trying to articulate spiritual truths?
That's a great question too. You're on it, like you're on the beam, because it's stripped down. It's stripped down. There's, some of these pages
What do you
um,
mean stripped
have,
down?
well, there's almost no words on every page here. I'm looking at page after page. This page, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Yeah, 25 words or less on the page. And I'll read this. It's by Hadith.
Well, can I just quick before
Yeah,
you do that?
yeah,
The point of it being poetry is like, okay, stripped down. So not that many words, meaning every word probably counts more, as if you were compare it to prose, in other
right,
words, right? Like, what's the difference between poetry versus prose, or reading an essay about God or something, like
right.
that. I think the form of delivery is relevant to the content, right? Is
Exactly.
so conciseness and word choice is like a big deal. And it's
Yeah,
almost like
and poetry,
you're saying more with less, or trying to articulate things that are very difficult to articulate in words.
you
Yeah.
know, yeah, I could almost say all of those things. And one thing I would even add to all of those things is that poetry leaves space. It's like your cartoon book, the
Right.
conversation that we had about, in
Comics,
comics.
not
Sorry.
cartoons. Go ahead.
Here I go tripping over words again. And what did you, that this great line that I could never get, and I always ask you about, interpreting social meaning? What is that
Yeah,
again?
well, the social negotiation of meaning is one thing, but I think what you're referring to in terms of the space in poetry is what's not said and leaves room for interpretation. It's ambiguous. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's the reading and the participatory nature of that, of
Mm-hmm.
the reader with the word on the page.
I
Uh,
think,
it's
yes, that's what I'm getting.
interactive experience, right?
Yes,
You're participating in that creation of meaning.
right. And I think that the space in poetry draws you in to the feeling. Like if you read
An
love
invitation.
poetry, what's that?
It's an invitation.
It's an invitation. It is. So I'm going to read this poem from page 27, and it's called A Moment.
Okay.
It's almost a modern title, A Moment. We're having a moment here.
Mm-hmm.
I have this eternal moment, this very now, with God, a moment so intimate that there is no room for any angel brought near or any prophet sent down.
Like direct contact with God. No interference, no difference, no space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Here's page 26, and this goes on like this. It's amazing. There's one after another, many different poets in here. Um, Listen to the titles. I think are from Omid Safi, and I'll get back to him and wind up in a minute. But the title is Uninterrupted Lightning. When the lights of divine self-revelation manifest to the heart, it is clear, uninterrupted, like lightning in the middle of a starless night, night that turns into day.
Mm.
I mean, this is just, anyway, I hope you're getting
Yeah,
in.
I think that's the immediacy of like enlightenment, clarity, like you know who you are. You are like the oneness with
Right,
like you are the divinity of like you are the divine.
right.
And it's a realization of that, like a lightning flash. And
Yeah. I'll just read one more. A single breath. To take a single breath in the presence of God is greater than all the treasures of earth and heaven. I mean, yeah, it's just amazing genre of poetry in this mystical tradition. And when we read Rumi on Hallmark cards or see them on Facebook feeds and things like that, those translations are not as Omid Safi gives them. They're a little bit more like in a Victorian tradition where it's a little flowery or this or that. And this gentleman is I think who wrote the book is a scholar of the language and kind of enters this genre of poetry through, like yourself, an expert in words, and sees these words with a more plain meaning as he believes they were written.
yeah, well, I think that the three poems had in common is they like words are representational, so it's sort of like there's the text and a subtext, but I think the point of the content is the immediacy and the uh no space between or no difference between us and God. And it's an experience. It's an experience. It's like experiential. God is being in
Mm-hmm.
a verb way. And
Mhm.
there's no like, oh, the realization didn't occur to me in my thinking brain. It's immediate in my being, in my very
Mhm.
being. There's nothing to think about or figure out. It's in that intimacy and immediacy is instantaneous, like less than instantaneous,
Mhm.
no time in between. It's like timeless. Do you know what you know what I'm saying?
I
Like
do. I do. It says here,
yeah,
it says
it's just
truth is
isness. It's this,
right.
it's this.
Right.
It's not. And he said this twice, a couple of times in that first poem. This is like, okay, what is this? That's a
Right.
reference to, it's that pointing to, but there's no pointing at all. It's just the same. It's
Right.
connection.
It
Unity.
says here, and this is Omid Safi speaking, truth is continuously and perpetually revealed. And there have been thousands of women
Right.
and men over the centuries whose yearning for God bears the fragrance of the path. This collection includes many of these intimate friends of God. And then he describes some of the most prominent members who stand out as poets to express in this Islamic mystical tradition. So anyway, I wanted to
I think
just
like
bring.
my interpretation, right? Just hearing the words out of context, you give a little bit of who the author is in the background or whatever, but like obviously there's way more history and cultural context to understanding in finding the meaning in the words, but also then just the visceral instantaneous meaning right now, like you reading them. Like I just responded to it
Right.
without knowing like the mystical tradition and like you know the what would have influenced the form of how that poem was written. You know what I mean? Like not knowing any of that,
Mhm.
kind of just fun to just have a reaction to it in the modern today right now,
Yeah.
knowing nothing about the larger context. Because right in
It's
the bigger
interesting.
narrative,
It is interesting too. You're talking about larger context, and one of the things that comes up in terms of context is that this is Islamic radical literature. And yet, when those words are put together in a larger context, you've got these other stories going on. And in this book, you can see the heart of love in uh, this tradition. And you can, in the world, see how that has been distorted, and it's the same as Christian. In the Bible and Jesus, you see the heart of love, but then you have people get on horses, put on armor, and go running around
yeah,
all the way from France to Jerusalem to kill people. I mean, it's
ideas
not
become radical,
very
right? And
different,
act it out. Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Fundamental,
Yeah,
whatever.
so Omid Safi, Radical Love, Teachings from the Islamic Mystical Tradition. Huge shout out to my friend Manish. Um, I wrote about him. His friends call him the captain. Sometimes I call him, well, I don't call him, but I wrote about him as being Ganesh. He's just a larger than life guy, and love him dearly. So,
Nice.
yeah, thanks,
Ganesh the
Maureen.
elephant. Is Ganesh
What's that?
the
Yeah,
Ganesh the
yeah,
elephant?
yeah.
That's a
Um,
Hindu god?
Yeah, the spirit of well, I probably shouldn't say because I'll get it wrong,
We
but
can we can find out.
it,
Yeah.
it it sort of makes things happen.
Okay.
Yeah,
We can
and that would be
the
money.
force. The force.
Well, this is Pierre this morning. Peace through grace, my friends. Peace through grace.
Okay. Maureen, landscapes for learning. Learn to live and live to learn.
Awesome. Thanks, Maureen. Thanks for this opportunity.